Jules, I think there's a lot to break down in this performance, which I don't think is in isolation. Now, obviously, they've won games before, they've drawn games before, they've had the power to come back, but
that's 4 games in a row now without a win, 3 draws and 1 defeat. The last time that was April 2017.
In the league.
Yeah.
Now, that 2 shots on goal, I think you said it was the lowest. Sorry, that's 2 shots in total on target.
The whole game, yeah.
It happened to both be on target. Both came early, as we mentioned, with Erling Haaland.
Yeah.
I thought it was very much a collective performance from Aston Villa, but I also have to highlight individually. I thought Diego Carlos, who's not my favorite player in the world, but he did a tremendous job in this game.
Yeah, he did well. Pau Torres as well, I thought, defensively.
But it felt to me like it was Diego Carlos who engaged Haaland physically.
I know,
for a lot
but
of
it's
the game.
easier when there's just no service because City didn't attack. They didn't create anything. They hardly went forward. They never put Villa on the back foot under pressure because they didn't have any control in midfield. Even they didn't even try to press. I mean, I've rarely seen City play, even away from home, even in big games, with a medium block. Medium, and that's kind of times. I've never seen them hoofing the ball forward, like just clearing the ball and staying super deep and super low like they did in the second half at 0-0. I was like, what is going on? This is the wrong shirt that they're wearing.
Pep talks a lot about players taking responsibility in the collective and stuff like that. Equally, you had quality players out there. Foden,
sure.
Bernardo Silva, Alvarez. It felt like nobody took charge. And obviously, yes, they're having trouble getting out, as you mentioned before, with turning the ball over 13 times in their own third, right? Trouble getting out of the back. But I'm surprised nobody dropped to help out. Or that Pep didn't think, and we've seen Bernardo do this before, all right, let me put Bernardo deep. There's no Rodri. Bernardo can shield the ball. He can pass the ball. He's got that quality, right? Out of all of them, he's probably the one guy who has that versatility. That didn't happen in the game, and that really surprised me.
True, but then they had no other wide options, though. If Doku or Grealish are fit and not suspended, I think Bernardo plays deeper in the game. The fact that Oscar Bob was the only one maybe you could have brought in and play wide to have Bernardo more central and deeper, maybe, because it's true. They have a big squad. They spend a lot of money, etc. We know all of that, but it's true that no Grealish, no Doku, no Rodri. It is a bit for what they do and for what they're very good at. Well, it's
a problem. I'm sorry, but you can play Alvarez wide, which is where he's played for most of his career, right?
But it's still not. The same.
There are things you could have done. It's not like all of a sudden, we don't have any players.
No, true. Right? I thought, for example, they could have played longer on Haaland, and the battle with Diego Carlos, who is one of the most physical and sometimes too physical, too aggressive centre-backs in the game, would have been interesting. But they've done it before against Arsenal. They beat the press by playing long and having De Bruyne very close to Haaland. They could have had Alvarez very close to Haaland and playing off Haaland. But they didn't even try that. It's just almost like it felt that Pep didn't know what to do. That he got his team wrong, that's a fact, because you should never go to Villa Park with that midfield ever. When you've got Kovacic on the bench, when you've got Calvin Phillips on the bench. I'm not a
and Mateus Nunes.
Yeah, I'm not a Phillips fan at all. But at some point...
That I think is a good point, because I'm thinking, if I'm Kovacic or Nunes or Calvin Phillips, all right, Calvin Phillips has probably made peace with it.
But still.
But he's like, I can't play in this game, right? Away from home, when we can't get the ball out of the back and we're struggling so much in midfield. I, who am a midfielder, and in the case of Mateus Nunes and Kovacic, a midfielder who just arrived, I can't start. He would rather play a center back like John Stones, who's just coming back from injury, or Manuel Akanji, who had a tremendous season last year, whatever. But as a defender, I don't know when Akanji became Beckenbauer.
They are very good in midfield when they play in midfield because Rodri is next to them.
This
is the reason. The main reason why they're okay there. Stones, especially, but also because Rodri is there. You take Rodri out, they are lost, and they were completely lost in that game.
So why do you? I mean, is this Pep overthink? Is this?
I don't know. It's strange. They play Luton on Saturday, so don't tell me that you kind of rested Kovacic or Calvin Phillips or Mateus Nunes
because you were worried about Luton.
So I don't know. He just got it wrong. It happened. Villa were the better team. Maybe they didn't expect the 3 men Villa midfield, maybe. Although I think it was pretty obvious from the beginning. If you looked at the game without Rodri, that's what Unai Emery would do, and that's what he did. I don't know. It's almost like a brain freeze from Pep all through it. Not at the start with the lineup, and then even through the game with his substitutions.
And by the way, how obviously Rodri, I think, he's served a suspension now, right?
Yeah,
his
this
third
one
but,
game only. Yeah.
I mean, how big is that suspension again?
So this one is too many yellows, obviously.
Right.
The
but
one that
between
cost
this
them,
and the one that they had before.
Yeah, but that one was a red.
Which was entirely unnecessary.
He just lost his head. Yeah, this one. I mean, this one, we would need to look again at the yellows that he picked up. Some of them might have been unnecessary. Some have been like good tactical fouls. I can't remember, to be fair. And I know we've talked about this stat before. But if you look at all the games that he didn't play for City this season, and there's the win against Young Boys in the Champions League 3-0 where... But then they lost at Newcastle. They were really not good. So it's not even that they can play well without him and you lose because it was just not happening for you. But they lost and not playing well in all of those games pretty much. And that lack of what he misses. And I was just saying it's okay. You can be without Rodri for an injury, for a suspension. But from a club like that, with the money that they have, to not have a backup for Rodri is unprofessional. I'm really sorry, but every sporting director, when they plan their season, when they plan their transfer windows, they have a big board in their office, and every position has the 2 or the 3 names that players cover that position. So the goalkeepers, you've got 3. Right back, you've got 3. Left back, you've got 3. Centre backs, you've got 2 and 2, or 3 and 2, and 3 and 3, etc., etc. In the Rodri role, they have Rodri and that's it. How, as a club like Manchester City, you don't have someone to back up, albeit the best midfielder in the world, defensive midfielder in the world, but still, get me someone there. Come on.
The obvious Rodri alternative is Calvin Phillips. So that's why he's...
Well,
no,
clearly
but I'm saying is, if you talk about like for like, obviously he is, I think, and there's no disrespect Calvin, but he is a lot worse and hasn't performed well since coming there. I can only assume...
It can't be the replacement because they don't play him when they have to replace Rodri. So he's not the replacement.
But you're asking, but in terms of skill set, Calvin Phillips is the alternative to Rodri. And maybe, there's your answer there. Because Kovacic and Nunez they could have done a job there.
Yeah, I guess.
But obviously those are different sorts of players. He was viewing them in a different light when he signed them. I also think, I think Ederson was poor against Spurs, but I thought in this game he made some really big saves. And I thought some of the other defenders, and maybe it's always hard when you lose the ball in the final third and have to react as a defender. But I didn't think Ruben Dias was great. No. I thought Gvardiol had another really, really rough outing. And Walker, I heard an ex-pro on television say Walker's the greatest defender in Premier League history. And I don't know if they were making a joke or if I should send Rio Ferdinand you could probably name
a few
who would be in the conversation. But I think he's an English defender, to be fair. But still, I thought they really struggled. And I wonder, again, if it isn't this style of play puts a lot of pressure on one-on-one defenders. On defenders having to act one-on-one.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But if you make a mistake in that situation, right, it's not about collective defense anymore once you play that way, right?
Yeah, no, that's for sure. We've said about Ruben Dias before. We mentioned what he did against Chelsea when he air tackled someone, the ball. I saw him against Spurs doing something quite similar, trying to anticipate and being completely out of it and made not much sense. And on the goal, I just think that for Bailey, maybe you don't expect Bailey to come inside onto his right foot, considering how left-footed he is. Maybe Gvardiol gets done and is sent to get
done
a
twice.
Hot dog. But then I think Ruben Dias takes a bit of a time and he's late. That's the deflection happens. If you're not late, you block the ball. If you're late, then the ball deflects off you and goes in the way he did on the goal. So, Ruben Dias' form, I have to say, have worried me a lot this season. He's certainly not the defender at the level that he was last season.
Let's go back to Villa then, because then the obvious question for me is this is a realistic top 4 candidate. It has to be at this stage, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, their away form is obviously not as strong. Even Unai said on Wednesday night they should have lost at Bournemouth on Sunday, which is true. They should have.
Last minute equaliser.
Yeah, they should have. They were not good. And away from home, they have they have struggled, and they struggle usually.
But that doesn't mean you can't finish top 4.
No, for sure, no. If they were not in Europe at all, and I know it's not the Champions League, so I know they can probably do about with the depth they have in their squad to field 2 really strong teams, interesting teams, let's say, both on Thursdays and on Sundays. And they might be out in Europe in March or something, and then have only the Premier League to play for until May, and then be very good and very efficient. So yeah, I think top 6 certainly. If you are a Newcastle, a United.
Well, sorry, but this is the competition, right? It's Newcastle.
So Liverpool and City and Arsenal are top 4 guys.
Even though the gap isn't that big, but yes, but
yeah, you know what I mean.
I'm with you, right? I mean, I'd say 99.9 for all 3 of those,
yeah.
right?
So then that 4th place.
For that 4th place, we're talking Spurs, right? We're talking Manchester United.
Yeah.
We're talking Newcastle
and Villa.
And we're talking Villa.
Yeah.
You're not going deeper than that.
No, I don't think so.
Do we want to play the percentage game? Do you want to go out on a limb and play the percentage game?
But even of those 4, one is even going to miss out on the top 6, which is, when you think about all those clubs, you think like, how can United, Spurs, even Newcastle with the momentum that they have now, finish 7th in the Premier League? And that's because of Villa's form. So if Villa can maintain it, I still don't think they can finish top 4. I think they will just, a bit like West Ham did before, I think there's a point where it all gets a bit too much for you, maybe. So,
what I would say into this is, I think injuries are playing a huge factor this season at so many clubs, not just the big ones, not just in the Premier League. We've seen Real Madrid, we've seen Milan. In the Premier League, we've seen Brighton and Brentford, for example. To name but 2. But I think it's evident to me that Spurs, United, and Newcastle have all been really affected by injuries. I don't think that's happened to. Obviously, they lost Tyrone Mings.
Yeah.
Although, to be honest, I'm not sure. Like this Diego Carlos Torres thing is working really well.
Pau Konsa as well.
And when Konsa plays in the middle, they haven't been affected by injuries as much.
That's
so
true.
I'm wondering if that could be the discriminant, if they're due, if it maybe doesn't happen because of Unai Emery likes to play with his voodoo dolls and keep his players fit.
Yeah.
But I think it would be tremendous. So you're not answering my question, do you, Baba? We don't want to play percentages because it's too early.
I'm a bit hesitant. I would love them too, and I think they're doing an amazing job. They've been the 3rd best team in the country since Unai took over a year ago. Top
statistically.
4, in terms of statistics.
Not in real life.
So we said that Villa have won 14 league home games in a row, right?
So they claim.
Yeah. The last time they lost at home in the league was in February against Arsenal. Who is their next opponent? Arsenal on Saturday.
Speaking of...
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Voodoo.
Exactly.